The future of tabletop gaming has never been in a better spot than it is right now. And I don't know if that's just because COVID and everyone was stuck in their homes and they just decided painting miniatures would be a good way to pass the time or what. But all I know for certain is that tabletop gaming is growing. I mean, the ability to have a YouTube channel like this one is kind of proof of that. I hope it gets better. I hope everything keeps growing, including my channel. But what does that mean about the future? Where are we going? How's the tabletop gaming landscape look? Well, I think it looks pretty amazing, and it might be a little different than what we're used to, but I think that's a good thing. So let's talk about it. So what do I mean when I talk about the future of tabletop gaming? Well, I'm talking about the future of miniatures in specific. There are so many different games and so many different things out there that it's crazy. And some of them, yeah, I can totally understand how they succeed. Other ones, I'm just kind of like, for the price and for everything else, it's just too much. But we're not going to be talking about game types. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the models. And we're going to compare them as best as we can. And I have just a little bit of criteria that I'm going to do for that. And it's just 3 things. We're going to talk about cost. We have to. It's, it's what makes or breaks. It's what lets people get into the hobby or just watch from the sidelines like a lot of us have done for years. So we'll talk about cost. We're going to talk about quality. And you'll see that'll run a little bit in different directions than you think it might. And then lastly, I'm going to kind of compare their ease. And what I mean by that is ease of painting, ease of assembling, ease of acquiring. And we'll go from there. So first we're going to be talking about the tried and true plastic model. And specifically we're going to be talking about the Games Workshop plastic models. Okay, this is just a Space Marine model. These are awesome models. They are. And when we talk about cost, well, they are the most expensive models out there. And I don't think there's anyone in this world who wouldn't like to see them cheaper. Now, I know that they got to protect their IP and the comments are always filled with people who are just arguing about how Games Workshop does things. But bottom line is they're charging way too much for them. They are. I would love to see a breakdown and just get the actual percentage, the actual cost of making these. And, how much of that is just pure profit. Okay, I'm not going to harp on GW as a company. I don't understand the reason that they do certain things the way they do, but I don't think anybody does. And so we just kind of let them go and do their own thing. But cost-wise, yeah, they're a ripoff. Quality-wise, they're some of the best models that are out there. There's no doubt about that. But some of them are outdated. Some of them are so old that you can't even... you can totally tell the difference between the new units and the old units on armies. And it's not supposed to be that way. Things are supposed to mesh together. They're supposed to work together. But overall, their quality is incredible. Games Workshop is around because people like their models. And that's it. Bottom line, quality is really good. But what I have to say with ease of painting, it's just like any other model. It's pretty easy to paint. The fact that it comes in small pieces, well, you can assemble it, you can put it together, you can paint whatever you want. You can paint it on the sprue if you want. So as far as ease of painting goes, they're probably the easiest ones out there because you can do it however you want. But when it comes to assembly's a nightmare. Travarian posted a video last week about how these plastic models are just getting to a point where they're so hard to assemble, it's almost not even worth it on a lot of them. And it's not just that you clip them together, you have to clip them together. You have to sand them down. You have to use sprue glue. You have to do other things to put them all together. And to me, that takes so much fun away from the hobby. There's so many things already that you have to devote your time to. Painting, priming, basing, all this other stuff. That assembly, it's not very easy. And so for me, I feel like that's probably the hardest point of these models. Maybe even more than, overcoming that cost. Because if you're paying cost for something that's good and comes the way that you want it to, and it's just accessible, Well, then this is kind of what makes it harder. Next up on my list, and this is going to come as a surprise to nobody, is 3D printing. Okay, 3D printing is, I feel like, the future of this industry, the future of tabletop gaming, because when it gets to the point where there's so many talented model makers out there that are selling these things at a fraction of the price. I mean, if you go and look on Patreon, within 10 minutes, you can probably find 4 or 5 different Patreon groups that are selling 30 plus models a month for $10 or right around there. So when it comes to cost, there is nothing in this world that is cheaper. And I gotta say this because I feel like every time I bring this up, people start ripping into me about, oh, you gotta have space in your house, and you gotta have properly ventilated areas, and you gotta have the money to buy the printer, the wash and cure station, the da-da-da, you know, and they just start lighting into me about how it's not really that cheap. Okay? And so what I say to that is, to a certain extent, you're right. But I mean, if you've got a garage that you can print in, all that you have to have is a printer with resin and alcohol to clean it up. Or you can get water-based. You don't even need alcohol. If you get water-based cleaning resin, you can just clean it with water. And then you got to cure it. Can you use the sun to cure it? Yes. Is it as good as other options? No. But a nice curing light, you can get one for $20. You don't need the $150, $200 wash and cure stations. You don't. Do they make things easier? Sure. But I've been printing for years and I don't have one. So don't worry about that stuff. So anyway, out the door for $200, you can start 3D printing and 3D print a lot. Okay, so cost-wise, yeah, this one's going to be the trump card for cost. Quality, well, the quality depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how good your printer is. It depends on how well you have it, you know, set up. It depends on the models that you're using, because if you're using a crappy model, you're going to get crappy quality. You know, so there's a bunch of factors in there, but quality is as good as you want it to be. And that's all I can say about it. It's as good as you want it to be, and it's as good as you're willing to pay for it to be. I have a 4K printer. My printer was $150. The quality I get, I feel like is fantastic. And I love the customizability. Okay, when we talk about ease, I got to talk about this. I printed this big guy. My Nemesis Dread Knight for my Grey Knight Combat Patrol, obviously a proxy. Okay, and I wanted a librarian character, but I didn't like any of the ones that came in the Patreon, so what did I do? I got one of those big guys and I shrunk him down. Because you can do that with a 3D printer. And I printed the smaller one, and yeah, I know he doesn't look like a librarian, but that's a pretty cool librarian, right? With the gun and stuff. But anyway, you can do whatever you want. The ease is as easy as you make it. Yeah, sure, some printers are a little harder to get into. Yes, you gotta cure them and you gotta clean them and you gotta do all that stuff. But after printing your first bottle of resin, that stuff just becomes easy stuff that you do. It's not hard. Okay, I mean, they're teaching kids in elementary schools how to do this. Most libraries in the US have a resin printer that you can go and use and print things. Like, it's not this dangerous, be afraid of everything type printing anymore. Are there precautions you should take? Yes. So I can't say that it's the easiest thing out there, because it's not. I mean, it's a lot easier to just buy a pre-assembled model and go. But it's not this huge nightmare that everyone makes it out to be either. There's a reason so many people are getting into 3D printing, and it's definitely not because it's the hardest thing in the universe and your family's going to die. You know, it's easy. But it takes a little work to get into. And for some people, that's not worth it. And that brings us to the newest addition to what could be the future of models. And that is, again, 3D printed, but not in the way that you're thinking. Companies like Privateer Press have started mass producing and 3D printing the models to their games like War Machine, where they're printing an entire army for the cost of $200 to $250, depending on where you buy them from. Directly from them, it's $250, but that is for a tournament-ready army at 75 points. Can you add to it and change it? Yes, of course you can, but for a flat $250 to get into this hobby, I think that's an incredible price. So as far as cost goes, I think that's a pretty good deal. All of their rules and everything are online or in their app, and they're free. So basically, your only cost is going to be the models and then whatever you need to paint them and get them ready for the tabletop. And I think if you can get into tabletop wargaming for $250, you're doing a pretty good job. Next, we jump to the quality. I love the quality of these models. I think that they are fantastic. And this company has gone out of their way to make sure that quality assurance is part of their process. Does that mean every model you get is going to be perfect? No, some will show up and they'll be broken. None of the models that I had showed up broken, but one of them actually had a blemish. And I didn't catch it until I was painting it. And the blemish was a slice down its face. And I just turned that into what I thought was a really cool scar. But I'm not expecting everyone to do that. When you receive these models, you reach out to the company, you tell them, and they send you a new one. And from what I'm hearing, their customer service is really good. So quality, I think they're right up there. These are fantastic looking models. They might be a little too busy for some people, but I think that they're in a great spot. So last thing we go to is ease. The ease of painting and taking care of these models, getting them to the table. They show up and they're fully assembled. You don't have to put them together. Now, I'm not saying that there's no cleanup because there's going to be some supports left behind in some of the models. But generally, you just pick them out really quick with a pair of tweezers or something like that, and you're good to go. Sometimes, like I said, things will be chipped, things will be broken. You can replace them. You can glue them back together. I mean, these are models. I'm not going to say that they're not going to break when you drop them, but this company is doing a very good job of updating their resin every time a better kind comes out. And they're testing them constantly to find the best durability for their models. So they will do their best to take care of your quality needs. And I think they're easy to get on the table. I mean, there's a reason that I started painting this army before anything else, just because I got them out of the box, I glued them to their base, and they're ready to paint. Sure, I have to pull off some supports every now and then along the way, but it's not too bad. So, which one of these is the future of tabletop gaming? I don't know. I really don't. I hope that it's a hybrid of all three. I hope people who want to buy plastic can always buy those plastic models. I hope people that want to buy STLs or the 3D printable files can buy them and print their own. You know, it's not that hard to show that you purchased something. All you have to do is show up to a tournament with your proof of purchase models, and then you can play. And the other option is for companies to start 3D printing their models for you. Pass those savings along to you so that it's not, oh man, I have to print these models or I'm going to go broke. It's, oh, these are a pretty good deal. I can afford to do this. So honestly, I don't know if one of these is the future or if a combination of all three is. But I'm curious to know what you think. Is plastic the only way to go? Is 3D printing the future and everyone should just buy a 3D printer now and get it over with? Or do you think other companies like Games Workshop or Infinity or those others, will start 3D printing their own models? Drop a comment down below. I'm curious to know what you think. And if you like the content that we're putting out, please like and subscribe. We just hit 1,000 subscribers and I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for coming to the channel and stick around. Show the channel to other people you think might be interested. And hopefully this channel will just keep growing and we can start doing even more exciting and fun things. But for right now, we do painting, we do tutorials on modeling and building and anything in between for the tabletop gaming experience. So if any of that interests you, stick around. And as always, don't spend so much time building your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.